At 0600 hours, USCGC Monroe was operating south of Iceland, holding a steady course behind a 330-meter oil tanker named Marinera. The distance between them was roughly 300 meters. It had stayed that way for 16 days. The tanker was under sanctions and moving toward Russian territorial waters. Monroe carried a federal seizure warrant. The tanker carried a Russian flag, recently painted across its stern. Both crews understood the implications. At 0847, Monroe's Combat Information Center received a flash message from Submarine Force Atlantic. A Russian attack submarine had departed the Northern Fleet. Submerged. Speed estimated above 20 knots. Projected course, intersecting the tanker. That message altered the situation immediately. Boarding a commercial vessel in open ocean is a controlled operation. Boarding while a hostile submarine operates nearby is not. If the submarine reached Marinera before the boarding team deployed, the balance shifted. A torpedo does not require warning. It requires proximity and intent. The calculation was simple. Introduce a submarine, compress the timeline, force the United States to decide between risk and hesitation. The tanker reaches Russian waters, or the Americans stand down. 19 other sanctioned tankers had recently shifted to Russian registry. The message behind the move was strategic. A flag alone is symbolic. A submarine behind it is leverage. To reach the tanker in time, the submarine had to cross the GIUK Gap, the deep water corridor between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. For decades, NATO has monitored this passage. During the Cold War, Soviet submarines treated it as a high-risk transit. Detection rates were significant, even with 20th-century sensors. Today, surveillance capabilities are substantially more advanced. Within hours of the submarine's departure, a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon was on station over the North Atlantic. Sonobuoys entered the water in structured patterns. Each buoy deployed a hydrophone and began transmitting acoustic data. Submarines are engineered for stealth. They are not silent. Cooling systems generate vibration. Propulsion shafts produce tonal signatures. Water flow across a hull creates identifiable noise. Sound travels efficiently through deep ocean layers. Initial bearings were established. Additional buoys narrowed the track. The submarine commander initiated sprint and drift tactics. High speed to clear predicted fields, then reduced propulsion and near-silent drift. It is a disciplined method of complicating detection. But he was not facing a single aircraft. A Royal Air Force P-8 joined coverage from the south. A Norwegian P-8 covered the northern approaches. An RAF RC-135 Rivet joint collected signals intelligence across the theater. Data was shared in real time. The submarine attempted to mask its acoustic signature beneath commercial shipping lanes. For a short period, tracking confidence degraded. Then, intercepted communications revealed a course adjustment. New sonobuoy patterns were placed along the revised heading. Contact stabilized again. The submarine descended below the thermocline and shifted to battery power. Acoustic output decreased. The American aircraft transitioned to magnetic anomaly detection. A submarine can reduce noise. It cannot alter its mass. Thousands of tons of steel moving underwater produced measurable magnetic disturbance. Contact was reacquired. Each evasive maneuver consumed time, and time was the critical variable. By the evening of January 6, two Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers joined Monroe's formation, USS Bulkeley and USS Paul Ignatius. Each carried the Aegis combat system and the AN/SQQ-89 anti-submarine warfare suite. They did not need to search broadly. The acoustic signature had already been established. Active sonar transmissions began. Inside the submarine, the pings were unmistakable. Active sonar at this stage is not exploratory, it is declarative. It communicates that tracking confidence is high. Both destroyers carried the RUM-139 VL-ASROC, a rocket-delivered torpedo capable of reaching a designated position in seconds. The submarine commander understood escalation dynamics. A single torpedo fired at Monroe would guarantee immediate engagement from multiple platforms. He was deployed as deterrence, not as a sacrificial trigger. Meanwhile, Marinera continued toward Murmansk at 9 knots. The submarine's progress slowed under evasion, and the North Atlantic weather delayed any boarding attempt. For 16 days, swells exceeded 15 feet. Helicopter operations were unsafe. A failed insertion would shift advantage back to the tanker. On January 7th, conditions improved. Swells dropped. Visibility expanded. The operational window opened. An MH-65 Dolphin lifted from Monroe carrying the Coast Guard's Maritime Security Response Team, the MSRT. Trained for high-risk maritime interdiction, and unlike naval forces, the Coast Guard carries federal law enforcement authority on the high seas. That distinction determined who would take the ship. From the tanker's bridge, the approaching helicopter appeared limited. 1 aircraft, 1 cutter. Moments later, 2 MH-6M Little Birds entered formation behind the Dolphin. They belonged to the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. They had been embarked aboard Monroe throughout the entire pursuit. While visible air deployments in the United Kingdom drew public attention, the decisive element remained at sea. The MSRT fast-roped onto Marinera's forward deck. Bridge control was secured within 90 seconds. Communications were disabled. Navigation authority transferred. Engineering compartments were cleared to prevent scuttling. 33 crew members were detained and accounted for. Overhead, the Little Birds maintained visible presence. The Russian submarine remained under continuous tracking by air and surface assets. No torpedoes were launched. No missiles were fired. The tanker never reached Russian waters. The objective was not destruction, it was enforcement under pressure. A submarine had been introduced to create doubt. Instead, it was tracked, contained, and rendered strategically irrelevant. Layered surveillance, Allied coordination, measured escalation. In the North Atlantic, authority did not shift. It was demonstrated, deliberately, visibly, and without a single shot.